afternoon. You are tuned into Ability Matters, program that covers matters to do with abilities, disabilities and everything in between. Ability Matters is one of the longest-running disability-related programs in the whole wide world. Starting as Headway On Air in 2007, you can now listen to podcasts of previous Ability Matters programs on YouTube and Spotify. Just search for Ability Matters. Ability Matters is brought to you by My Home Living Care, an NDIS registered disability.
Yes, thank you, Sean. This is Ability Matters on the Illawarra's favourite community radio station, 106.9 VOX FM. I'm your host for Ability Matters, Tony Sconimilio. And with me, I don't have anyone else in the studio, but I have a pre-recorded interview. So we'll go through some songs first, and then we'll see what we have to go there. I think I'm going to open up today's show with The Animals. And of course, I've got to thank Lil for her My Generation beautiful input. Lovely work. Thank you, Lil. And yeah, I'll open up with The Animals. We Got to Get Out of This Place from 1965 album, Animal Tracks. Okay, there was something happening there, a bit of a technical issue maybe, but okay. I gotta have a quick message now on behalf of my usual co-host, Rebecca, or Beck, from Flagstaff. Now, she's got a small message she'd like to pass on in tribute to her father-in-law, Johnny, who's recently passed away. Now, he served his time in the Navy, as well as continuing his work later on tugboats in his life. Now, so amongst my usual mixed selection of music, today I'm going to be playing you a few of his best-liked songs. And yes, he was a big fan of Slim Dusty, so I'll start off today's show with a personal request. A Slim Dusty classic from 1980, I'd Rather Have a Beer with Duncan. There we go. Yes, good old Slim Dusty. It's been a while. That was his second most well-known single after, of course, his ultimate classic, The Pub With No Beer. But that Slim Dusty song was particularly requested, so I went with the request. Because everyone knows A Pub With No Beer, but that wasn't the requested one, so there we go. All right, now, here's the first of 3 parts of the interview from Reliability.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Ability Matters. We've got a couple of very interesting people in from Newcastle this morning. A couple of people from an organisation called Reliability. You might remember we had Nathan Bell on a couple of weeks ago from a similar organisation. And now today we do have Paul Russin and Michael Makokaddick. Good morning, Paul and Michael.
Yeah, good morning, Sean. Thanks for having us. Yeah, thanks, Sean. Pleasure to be here.
Thanks for joining us. Just quickly, Michael, before we get into talking a little bit about the things we're going to talk about, how was Nathan's trip down to Wollongong? He's selling books in the mall. How did he go?
Yeah, he went good. The feedback he provided to me was really positive, and he was happy with how it went. Yeah, it was a really enjoyable few days, and nice to catch up with you in person down there too.
Yeah, we caught up, had a bit of a couple of chats and a bit of a cup of coffee there. And Nathan, when I spoke to him halfway through the day, seemed to be really enjoying it.
Well, he spoke real positively of that experience, even though the weather was a little bit tricky, and when you're selling, he's got his street store sort of set up. The rain made it a little bit tricky, but despite that, he was actually impressed with how he went, and he was able to connect with a whole bunch of people down there and help lift the profile of his and some of his colleagues, some of our other clients as well that he promotes.
Yeah, it was pretty much torrential rain for a lot of that day, so he did well, I think. All right, well, let's get talking a little bit about Reliability. Oh, actually, before we do that, let's just talk about you guys, I think. It's always interesting on this program to just dig a little bit deeper into the people we talk to and find out a little bit about them. I guess we'll start with Paul. Paul, can you just tell me a little bit about yourself, hobbies, interests, where you grew up, all that sort of interesting stuff?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the Newcastle area. I've always been interested in things like music and dance. I actually spent 30 years as a dancer, touring around through Australia, and mostly Australia and New Zealand.
What kind of dancing?
Well, I worked in a male review show, like the Manpower sort of show.
Fantastic.
I had my own show in partnership with my brother, and also I did a lot of freelance work and worked with shows like Manpower. Yeah.
Oh, wow, cool.
So it was a great way to make a living, and I got 30 years out of it, so that was great. The other interest, like I said, is music, and I sort of shelved my music for a while, and I've only just come back into it in the last couple of years, and really I couldn't think of it as something that rather be doing, than playing music at this time of life. It's great.
Do you play an instrument or sing? What's your contribution to music?
I play guitar, and I'm sort of concentrating on playing bass at the moment. I try to sing. I like to sing. But I wouldn't say I was a singer. But, I'm enjoying all the aspects of playing music and playing live music. And recording. Yeah.
I guess two questions. What in terms of music, what's your favourite genre? What kind of music are you into?
Well, I always grew up loving rock and roll. Now it varies. Michael and I and a couple of other industry professionals are working on a country album. I'm really enjoying writing and playing country. I like all sort of music, really, all the genres. Rock was always my number one love growing up.
Okay. Well, that answers my second question. I'm going to say what kind of music are you playing at the moment? But the country. Fantastic.
Well, a mix, yeah. We're still playing rock. But we have a client staff band that we jam throughout the week, and we play all styles. Looking at some live performances coming up, so it's a lot of fun.
Oh, where are those live performances? Where are you going to be performing? In Newcastle, I assume?
Yeah, in the Newcastle area. We've got a couple coming up in the Raymond Terrace area in Newcastle, and we're actually working, I think, on the Central Coast in November as well, in the Woy area. Okay.
How can people find out about where you're playing?
I'm sure they could ring Sarah and Michael at Reliability.
Okay.
Or speak to Andrew.
Yep. That's right. Yep. Or we've got the Reliability Facebook page, which we're starting to update more regularly. Nathan, who you have already met, is largely in control of our social media and marketing. So look out for updates on our Reliability Facebook page, because they'll certainly be going up there in the weeks leading up to these various live performances. The Central Coast one, I think that's at the Lincoln Pin that's going to be.
Yeah, that's where it's at, yeah.
They support a lot of local original music and even touring shows as well. But
there's not a lot of venues.
Great little venue down there. We've been fortunate enough to take a client staff band down there in the past, and they're very supportive of it.
Yeah, there's not a lot of venues, or not as many venues as there were a few years ago, playing live music. That's good. You've got a couple of places to go.
No, there's not, no.
Yeah. Michael, tell me a little bit about yourself, your background, your hobbies, interests, all that sort of stuff.
I'm a Novocastrian. I was born and bred here in Newcastle. I spent my teenage years, and I grew up in Charlestown, so I went to Whitebridge High. I spent my teenage years just getting really passionate about music and played piano since I was about 3 or 4 years old. I taught myself by ear how to play piano, and then as a teenager I started to pick up the bass guitar and some other instruments. So I played guitar as well, and then as a young adult I went into a few tribute. I was in a Beatles show, a Beatles concept show originally, from about 18 to 22, which we had quite a bit of success with around the Hunter region. And then, so I was the Paul McCartney of that show. As I got older, my voice got deeper and deeper, and until in my late 20s, I started to have to adjust what I was singing and find new artists that I was comfortable with the range. And I ended up doing a Johnny Cash tribute show eventually for about 6-7 years with a group of really talented musicians. We're actually we haven't played for about 8 years, but we're actually revamping it and relaunching it in 2026. Look out for that one. And I think we're going to continue with the old name we use, Cash Walking the Line. Have a look out for that in the coming months. I went to university after performing, around all the venues up and down the coast even.
That's interesting. So you're kind of a mature age student. You went back to uni after doing some other stuff.
Oh, yeah, I did.
Cool.
Look, the lifestyle was great, playing twice a week, but I wasn't ever going to be able to pay a mortgage off. It's not easy. It's a really difficult industry to establish yourself in. I was paying my bills. I was just scraping by.
Yeah.
And eventually, 28 years old, I think I decided to go to uni. I was either 28 or 29, and I did an arts degree. At that time, community welfare was part of the arts program at Newcastle University, so I ended up studying community welfare and philosophy majors, but I did a lot of electives in digital media and film and sound production and so on. I ended up working after that degree, working in child and family welfare for about 4 years as a caseworker, and then having a break, I kind of felt like I was getting a little bit stressed out, so I left that
very
role.
Tough
and
gig, that kind of area.
It was tough.
Yeah.
I was briefly in child protection and then out of home care.
Yep.
Monitoring foster and relative care placements. Yeah, I saw it. It's a bit of a revolving door. Not many people last too long in that type of work.
Especially, should jump in. Especially the right type of people. If you've got a big heart and you're there to make a difference, it does become quite, the word is frustrating or downheartening.
It becomes hard to switch off when you get home because you're only human, and you genuinely care about these people that you're employed to kind of try to get the best results for, and that can be, it can be really challenging work. It's quite confronting, some of that as well. Like you're dealing with traumatized children quite often, and emotionally, and even traumatized parents, and emotionally charged environments. It can be difficult to navigate, especially early on when you're learning the ropes. But
you often deal with people.
Important.
So you're often dealing with people on the worst days of their lives, repeatedly, I guess.
Exactly. Yeah. So I kind of saw what was coming, because I was always sort of mindful of my own self-care. Like they do train you quite well around that and strategies to put in place. But I could see, look, I didn't want to be one of those people that was going to go on stress leave or something like that, because I was, I could see it coming. So before I burnt out, I left the role and took a 6-month holiday in Europe and went all around Europe. I bought a van in the UK and drove all around Europe for 6 months and had a great time. And then I came back, having had time to reflect, and I decided to go into non-clinical mental health services, and then spent about 3 or 4 years with a big provider.
Yes, that was great information there. Okay, I'm going to just break up a bit of the interview there because there's still 2 more parts to go. I'm going to break it up with some Stevie Wonder, Part-Time Lover from 1985. Okay, I'm just going to jump straight into part 2 of that interview.
Particularly in my 20s, I went through some challenges with my own mental health and pretty severe anxiety and a lot of panic attacks there for a number of years, which made it really tricky. Made it tricky to perform on stage as well at times.
I was going to say, how's that? Like, you're obviously up in front of a crowd. Did you feel comfortable on the stage? Or?
Yeah, I wasn't adopting the healthiest strategies. Like, half the time I was using alcohol to kind of try and overcome that anxiety, because, in front of a crowd of 50 or 100 people, that can make it really difficult to get up on stage.
Definitely.
And so I'd have a couple of beers to try and, deal with that. And, as a soloist, I actually quit solo performance at one stage because it was just a little bit easier when you're a part of a team, and, to manage that anxiety was a little bit easier. I wasn't always sort of the one singing lead or in the spotlight, so to speak. Could share a lot of the responsibility when you're in a band, but it was really tricky. Eventually, going to uni and doing community welfare and taking on some subjects like counselling, and I educated myself around better strategies to cope with that, and I also changed my lifestyle choices completely. At that time, I completely gave up alcohol and cigarettes and everything, and I just cleaned my act right up. I got into swimming at the time. I was doing 100 laps a day, about 3 or 4 days a week.
Wow.
And my physical and mental health just improved dramatically over the course of that uni degree. And so, yeah, that was really a really valuable time for me, not just gaining insight into my own mental health lived experience through some of the theory that I was learning at university, but also just adopting much healthier strategies to manage my own health and well-being, and routine and good sleeping patterns and good physical exercise. They're all things that, and even I shouldn't understate it, like music has been a huge part of that journey as well, like engaging in the creative process and writing and composing and writing about my own lived experience as well.
It's sort of interesting. You were kind of studying it and putting it into practice in your own personal life.
Yeah, that's right. So after having a couple of years with a large mental health provider, learning all about the NDIS and helping that organisation adopt policies and frameworks that aligned with the NDIS, coming from the block-funded model to this individualised funding
That's
model.
a big change for a lot of organisations, for sure.
Massive change, which is why the transitional funding was in place for so long. I mean, I think, a lot of the transitional funding arrangements were in place for the better part of 10 years to give these big services that had a lot of clients and a lot of adjusting to do, a lot of staff, thousands of staff in some instances. And so, help them adjust.
I was with a big organisation at the same time, and there was that, the block funding where you got so much money per year and then you work with a number of clients. Those organisations become very efficient at that model. I guess in some ways robbing Peter to pay Paul, so to speak, to make that block funding go as far as it can. And it was a very different headspace to come in that individually funded model of the NDIS. Oh,
definitely. I for a couple of years there, I was attending practice forums. I did a lot of, because I was employed as a senior peer worker in that team, I did a lot of public speaking as well, where, helping to lift, reduce stigma and helping to break down some of those barriers there in society as well. But speaking from lived experience, and so I was fortunate enough to present with some of the senior leadership team from that organisation at the National Mental Health Conference, and I was published in an article or two. And
fantastic.
So that was really valuable time there, and I learnt a great deal. But I also saw an opportunity whilst I was there to develop a new program, a new service that wasn't really available, and create a service that was specific to mental health. A lot of the providers were kind of, even though they may have been calling themselves mental health specific, I did see providers grow and start to become more of a generalist disability, generalist psychosocial or disability provider, where they were taking on clients, for the sake of growth, like I felt
sometimes
was happening.
Sometimes out of the skill set of the organisation, like the clients are taken on probably weren't ones that they had a good deal of experience with.
That's right. Growth is really tricky to manage. I've been really fortunate that it's been sort of steady but sort of slow and steady. I started by myself. I went out on my own. I gave notice, plenty of notice.
I'll just jump in. So this is where we're talking now about reliability.
It is, yeah. So I left that other organisation to start Reliability about 8.5 years ago.
And reliability, sorry to jump in again, Michael, it's two words, rely, R-E-L-Y, ability, A-B-I-L-I. So two different words.
Yeah, dash ability with a capital A.
Yep.
For anyone that is interested, we've got the website, rely-ability.com.au.
It's a great website, by the way. I've checked it out. There's lots of great information there.
Yeah, it's quite a good website. And left the other service to start Reliability. And I saw that opportunity because I was meeting people. I was also the intake officer for the Hunter region for that previous service provider as well. I had a few different hats there. And I would meet clients that had their funding, their 12-month funding had lapsed, and they sometimes hadn't even utilised any of it. That was the demand for services back then. It was real. There was just not enough services, and so people were struggling to, link up with services or find the right sort of services. And, I also saw people come in to our doors, particularly young adults with mental health issues or a primary diagnosis of mental health, where they oftentimes would only stay for a short while and then leave. And I thought, how can I engage, younger people with mental health issues better? So, and a lot of co-design with our programs. But I started by myself. I was the first worker. And then about 6 months in, I employed a digital artist specialist that worked with us, and he's still with us. Tajin's done amazing work.
Just to jump in just quickly, in a couple of sentences, what is reliability?
It's a non-clinical. We don't offer counselling or any allied health services, but we do offer non-clinical. So just a lot of peer work support, a lot of mental health peer work support, and also just general mental health support. We have a couple of generalist support workers that don't identify as peer workers, but about 15 of our, including myself, 16 of our 18 staff do identify as peer workers, having their own lived experience, that they bring that added value to the role. We're mostly known for our Creative Arts Hub in Tyers Hill, Newcastle, which has got a couple of $100,000 worth of really nice music and art and digital media equipment. We've got a few recording stations, a digital art space where we've got some great programs like animation and graphic design, and even they develop their own games and 3D modelling and all sorts of really cool stuff.
Wow, that's very interesting.
Yeah, we've got quite a strong creative writing program as well. We've got 2 creative writers. Most of our staff, I'd say about 14 of the 18 staff have got university level qual, so they've completed a bachelor degree in a specific, creative arts field.
Okay.
It might be sound production, it might be animation.
It's been a very, very informative little interview there about Michael and Paul. Michael Matokatic and Paul Russon. Very interesting. I like how it's very music creative prone, that sort of thing, because I like music as well, obviously. But let's just get back to some more tunes. I think I'm going to continue the personal request from my co-host Beck for her brother-in-law, who loves a good selection of favourite songs here, Slim Dusty. I'll just rehash that there. Sorry, not brother-in-law, father-in-law. Tribute to father-in-law Johnny, who recently passed away. And Slim Dusty was his one of his favourite artists. So here we go. Here's his second favourite Slim Dusty song, I suppose, more actually fitting for his situation at the moment because he passed away. This is Slim Dusty, Looking Forward, Looking Back. A pretty relative song compared to this one. It's actually released in the year 2000 compared to 1980. That's 20 years, so there we go. Let's see how the difference sound. I think it's still pretty much Slim Dusty character. Yeah. Lovely work there, Slim Dusty. And that was obviously Slim Dusty with Looking Forward, Looking Back from the year 2000. Let's just continue on with the third part of the interview that we had between Michael Matokatic and Paul Russon from Ability for the reliability. That's 2 words, reliability. Non-clinical service about general mental health support with creative arts, basically mostly musical, but yeah. Creative arts all the same, and music is the best way to clear your head and keep it all self-centered. At least that's what I find for myself. But here we go, part 3 of the interview.
What's your involvement with reliability, Paul?
I'd gone through my own mental health problems, and being late in life, I didn't know how I was going to deal with the aftermath. And it was a psychologist that mentioned to me Michael on reliability. Of course, I've always been interested in music. They said, well, why don't you give that a go and see what you think? And, I mean, probably the smartest thing I ever did was walking in those doors. And,
how long ago was that?
Nearly 2 years ago now,
okay.
I think. Yeah, and
that sounds about right.
Yeah, I think that's about right. And, look, it's probably been one of the best things I've done, especially as I'm getting older. I think it was time to re-look at some of the hobbies that I'd had when I was younger, and music was probably the number one. And I'm so glad that my psychologist actually mentioned it.
So how's it reliability made a difference in your life and I guess your health?
Well, it's especially my mental health. I haven't had a relapse since sort of hooking up with reliability. When I'm playing music or writing songs or recording, my mental health really does settle. Like I said, I haven't really experienced any symptoms since beginning of the journey.
So often one of the issues...
I can recommend it to anybody to sort of get out there and do the things that you enjoy doing. If it's music, go and play some music, jam, or get involved with a company like Reliability and give it your best. And, it really does make a difference.
So often one of the sort of, I guess, effects, around mental health and those sorts of things is isolation and, that sort of getting cut off. Do you find coming along to Reliability and, I guess, do you find a lot of bonding and interaction and communication happening around as you're writing the music or, performing or whatever?
Sure. I've met some great people, industry professionals that are now called friends, and the people that play in the client staff band are great people, great musicians. I don't think I've met a person that I wouldn't call nice in through the service. So, it really does make a difference to be able to get out and do something and not be isolated, 7 days a week. It really does make a difference.
Reliability's... How long's it been going for now, Michael?
It'd be over 8 years. I think I initially would have registered back in 2016. I would have begun the process. What are we now? So, yeah, probably close to 9 years now.
Okay. And what are your plans for the future? What's next on the list for Reliability?
Well, I've always been really passionate about cooking as well. I did my commercial cookery when I was in my mid-20s over at the Newcastle TAFE there, at the Hamilton campus there, and I really enjoyed cooking. It's always been a passion of mine. I was thinking if we have the opportunity to expand a little bit more from where it's just a humble small service of 18 staff at the moment, it would either be a second creativity hub similar to the one that we have in Tyers Hill, where we maybe go down to the Central Coast and look at whether we can open up something down there to reach more people. Because there's a real lack of, there's a need for more services down in that area as well.
I'd just jump in. I think what you guys do is fantastic. There's a real need for that down here in Wollongong. If you're willing to expand, we'll talk about a little bit later about contact details, and I'll put a shout out for anyone that's interested in talking to Michael and getting an idea of how we make it work down here.
I'd be happy to talk, and I have spoken to people in other major cities on a few occasions just to give a little bit of advice on how I was able to manage that, starting, a new business up like that. I'm extremely fortunate that I have the staff, the team that I have. That is half the battle there, getting the right skills and the right, people on the team. Yeah, either that or something a little bit more local to Newcastle, like a cafe where we could provide more supported employment opportunities, I guess, for people, in the hospitality sector, serving, prepping and serving food and making coffees. And so something like that or a second creativity hub is kind of what I'm thinking would be good.
There's quite a few of those food / sort of coffee places down here in Wollongong that are quite successful, and they're leading to paid work for people. So that's probably another.
That's right.
Different thing.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of those up here as well. Anything that supports people to develop really important, valuable life skills, and food, is an essential, need. That could be a really nice one if we had an opportunity to find somewhere that we could launch something like that.
Fantastic.
So I've got a few ideas. So watch this space because something is likely to happen in the next year, in the new year.
I'll have to get you back on. Talk about the coffee hub or whatever it is.
Yeah, happy to.
Yeah, Paul, what are you looking forward to in the future?
Well, I'm happy with the way things are going, just continuing with what we're doing. Looking forward to the extra live performance we've got coming up and looking at writing some more songs down the track. We're working on getting a country album released at the moment, and that will come in the near future. And just continue from there, I think.
Fantastic. I was going to say I played a bit of bass, but really I just played, a couple of riffs of Smoke on the Water when I was young, which is probably the first thing that most bass players learn.
It's always a popular... I think that might have been the first one I learned when I was 12 on the bass guitar.
I used to manage bands. I was talking about before about live music. The live music scene in Wollongong 30-odd years ago, was a thriving scene. There was quite a few places, and I managed a couple of bands, and I was really good on the buttons on the deck, mixing the sound and carrying the drums in and stuff. And we used to have a lot of fun doing tours up to Newcastle and down to Canberra and other places. Got a bit more difficult even back then, and understand now it's a bit tricky. So good on you guys for getting out. There's a good place, a couple of places down in Wollongong. If you're ever looking to come down, I can give you a bit of a heads up and see if you can get in there as well. It'd be good to get you guys to come down.
That's a lovely gesture. We may actually take you up and have a chat about that in the future. We've been offered, I think, Melbourne and Canberra, and so it's just about lining up enough venues to make it financially viable as well for everyone. But that could be something we look at.
Cool. And it's a lot of fun going on the road and hanging out and taking the music to a different place. In terms of communication and finding out and talking to you or reliability, so the website, again, what was the details of the website?
Yeah, www.rely, it's RELY, and -ability.com.au. So you'll see there's a contact page that goes direct to my email. My number as the manager of reliability is also displayed on the website. There's an action call button. I think you can also press on the website, the bottom right. Do
you mind giving us that phone number? Because not everyone that listens to us is sort of connected to the net at all times.
Good point, yeah. It's 0432 04410.
All right, and as I mentioned earlier, we do a podcast of this. You can find it on Spotify, and I'll put up all the contact details up there. Anything else? Is there anything else I've missed? A fantastic interview, lots of great stuff, but is there anything else you think I should have asked about?
Nothing's coming to mind. I think we've covered a nice summary overview there, and really appreciate you having allowing us to come onto your show to share a little bit about what we do.
What about you, Paul? Anything else I've missed that'd be good to talk about?
No, I think we've covered most things today, but again, thanks very much, Sean, for having us on. And maybe we'll get together and talk to you again in the future.
All right, awesome. Thanks, Paul and Michael. Thanks for joining us here on Ability Matters. I'll definitely get you guys in early next year or mid next year to see the next stage in reliability. We'll be waiting with bated breath. It sounds very exciting. Thanks.
Yes, thank you very much, Paul and Michael. All right, so now I'm going to play, we just heard Paul talking about him making music. I've got a little example of what he's come up with. Was it Paul Russin, the very same person we've been hearing about in the interview, with someone else called Ezekiel Ox, and of course the reliability team. The song's called One Tonight. Let's have a listen, shall we? And that might be, we'll have a listen for now. Here we go.
Give me the beat for some rotation, throwing away our hesitation. One tonight. Light me up and fill my soul, letting go to lose control. And one tonight, one tonight. Tonight's the night we celebrate this life. Everybody's vibing, check the DJ, watch him smile. Today's the day that we've been waiting for. So get up out your seat and join me out on the floor. Oh yeah, we shine. This is our time. We're in our prime. But we've been here before. You're a shining light, a beacon bright. Superstars, that's what we are.
last song was by Paul Russin and Ezekiel Ox, as well as the reliability team called One Tonight.